All right, guys, we are back for another whole group rotation. This week, our topic is the art of Byzantine. Art is going to be a really important part of Byzantine culture. And so today we're going to take a look at some of the different themes that were revealed through Byzantine art, as well as some of the different types of art that was commonly used. So just like last time, you are going to follow along with me on the video. Please feel free to pause, rewind whenever you feel necessary, and you will use my slides to fill in the notes on that you have in front of you on the sheet. So a little overview of Byzantine art. Art in the Byzantine Empire oftentimes tended to be a little bit more abstract than realistic. So what I mean when I say abstract, it might have features or it might depict things that are not necessarily super realistic, like we often see in modern day art today. It is kind of comparable to the lively art that we saw with the Greeks and the Romans. However, Byzantine art often depicted people of the Christian faith. So in Greece and Rome, a lot of their art depicted mythology, the Greek and Roman gods and goddesses, and Byzantine was a little bit more centered around the Christian faith. And lastly, the Byzantine Empire art really began shortly after the fall of the Roman Empire in the fall of Rome in 500 BC, and it lasted all the way up until the Renaissance began in the 1400s. So it lasted for a really long time, and it was around for a really long time. So a few types of Byzantine art. We see something called illuminated manuscripts, which is down in this corner right here. This was sort of usually passages or stories written on paper that was decorated with kind of fancy font or images throughout it. We also see a lot of mosaics like you see right here in this corner, which we'll talk a little bit more about here shortly. We see a lot of sculpture, especially on buildings. Architecture, here's some blueprints, architectural designs we'll talk a little bit more about. And then, of course, we still see the continued use of painting as an art form. Now, the two types of art that we are going to focus on most today are going to be mosaics and architecture. So all of them were relevant, all of them were seen. However, mosaics and architecture are sort of the two dominant ones that we are going to take a closer look at today. Some common themes that were sort of portrayed in Byzantine art. It typically fell into two categories of theme or topic. The first theme that the art reflected would be religion. So a lot of times in art, we see it used to worship religious leaders or to tell stories from the Bible, which is the book of the Christian faith. Religious people and symbols in art are called icons. So oftentimes you'll see images of crosses or other various symbols or people of the Christian faith. And when those are used, they are referred to as icons. And then churches were oftentimes filled with various different works of art. So churches were definitely a home to many, many works of art during the Byzantine Empire. The second theme that art typically reflected was imperial power. And what I mean when I say imperial power is really just using art to glorify and show off the power and strength of the empire. Really kind of showcase how magnificent and powerful and glorious the empire was. So art was usually either showing off faith and religion, or it was showing off the strength of the empire. So the first of those two types of art that I mentioned is the first one is mosaic. Mosaic might be something that you are somewhat familiar with. A mosaic or mosaics, they are really what is going to be the most popular art form from the Byzantine Empire. They are also really historically significant and continue to be studied today. So you see them in museums. We see a lot of artifacts from mosaics being uncovered and studied by historians. Really, it's a pattern or an image that is made up of small, regular, or irregular pieces of colored stone, glass, ceramics, or different pieces of material that's then held in place by plaster to cover a surface. These are used as standalone art pieces, also sometimes used as floor and wall decorations. So here's some examples of mosaics. If you look really closely, you'll see that these are really small fragments of plaster, ceramic, stone, glass that are then all kind of stuck together and arranged to create an image or a pattern of some sort. And then the second form of art that we are going to look closer at is architecture. So many buildings and works of architecture drew upon Roman design elements that we've talked about already in class, such as domes and arches. Buildings are incorporated features and materials such as marble, columns, gold. Byzantine architecture was known for being elaborately decorated and designed and decorated. So you see sort of these really intricate, elaborate details and designs throughout the architecture, whether that be on the exterior or the interior of the building. So some really noteworthy and recognizable examples of great Byzantine architecture that might include the Hagia Sophia, which we got a little bit more familiar with through our trading cards in our groups. And then the Church of the Holy Apostles is another really notable church from the Byzantine Empire. And you can see that these two architectural designs are kind of similar in some ways. We see the domes, we see the arches. So very, very typical for Byzantine architecture. You can see sort of intricate and elaborate, very well designed buildings. And that, I believe, is the last stop on our notes for today. So you can go ahead and make sure that these go somewhere safe where you will be able to find them and reference them again in the future.